Good afternoon and welcome to Mars. I'm Deej from Bungie, and this is a ride-along. I'm here with Jason Sussman.
Hello.
Tell him what you do.
I was the destination owner for Mars, which meant that I oversaw all the production and the environment art for Mars.
Fantastic. So Jason Sussman will be Brown V for the day. We're also joined by Garrett White, who is Craig Hardgrove. He is a co-host of Guardian Radio. He casts a lovely bow. He also worked with the NASA JPL team that actually succeeded in putting the Mars Curiosity rover on the surface of the actual planet that we'll be touring today in Destiny. Craig, just introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners. What exactly did you do as a member of the JPL team?
I'm a planetary scientist, so I study rocks and landscapes on Mars, specifically rocks that are related to water and features that might be related to water on Mars. Mm-hmm. And so I am a member of the science team, and I work on a couple of the instruments that are helping us look for water with Curiosity on Mars. So that's my role. That's still my role on the team, and so I'm involved in the daily science planning activities for the rover, and I really like Destiny and video games, so this should be awesome.
This should be awesome. Actually, it's really exciting that we have an artist and a scientist just to sort of explore what we did as a creator of entertainment. Destiny is obviously science fiction, so not everything that we're talking about is something that we would recommend that you tell to your teacher if you're in a, if you're in a science class. Like, well, I know all about Mars.
There's a city on Mars.
There's a city on
Mars.
Of course there is.
Yeah,
there's a city on. There's crates and flags all over Mars. But
I can see them.
Craig can help us understand how science informed art and why he likes playing Destiny in general. So Craig is going to give us all the great questions that we're going to be answering today, and Jason is going to be our tour guide of the destination that he built with a team of fabulous artists that brought a lot of ideas and concepts to life.
Alrighty. So the first thing that happens when you land on Mars is that you get a really good overview of the planet itself. Mm-hmm. It kind of encapsulates a little bit of everything that sells the planet. It brings in the postcard for the planet. And so I just want to show a quick concept of the postcard that we had for Mars, and if Scott could bring up the Buried City postcard. When you see this is basically this is how we go about building our destinations. We start off with a title image, an image that really showcases the destination and guides us throughout the process. And so if we come back to the game now, you can see that you have the allure of the city, you have Phobos, you have Olympus Mons in the background, or at least a variant of Olympus Mons.
Olympus Mons would be this large mountain here?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay,
so that
and
large
Phobos
mountain,
is?
Phobos is the moon that is hanging very, very closely in the sky. And actually, Phobos is really close. I have to tell a quick story. So Craig came here, it was a while back, it was early days of Mars, and we had Phobos really close in the sky. And, I was really nervous because here's a guy who knows more about Mars than I did. I'm just a guy that's trying to make it look really pretty and push and pull verts and pretend that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to Mars. And the first thing he says, he's like, Phobos is really close. That's not quite accurate. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, I know. It's a fictional reason, and it is a fictional reason. But I was like, he's going to think I'm just full of shit. And I was like, no, it's just, there's an actual fictional reason. And Craig, I'll let you, if you want to elaborate on that and kind of the deal with Phobos in reality.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool because Phobos, you're not actually all wrong. Phobos is actually really close to Mars. It's only 9,000 kilometers away from the surface of Mars. And so if people have a frame of reference, Earth's moon is about 300,000 kilometers from the surface of Earth. But Phobos is only about 14 miles across in diameter, so it's really tiny. We have some pictures of it eclipsing the sun that we took from the Curiosity rover, and you can see it takes up a little less than a third of the whole disk of the sun when it eclipses the sun. But what's really cool about Phobos is that because it's so close, it gets closer and closer to Mars every year, and it's eventually, in about 50 million years, people think it's going to crash into the surface of Mars. So one of the things that I said to you guys was, that you're not so far. One, it is close to the surface of Mars, and two, it will eventually crash into the surface of Mars, and it'll break apart. There's something called the Roche limit when the force of gravity on the opposite side of Phobos exceeds the force of gravity on the front side of Phobos, actually it's the other way around, but it basically pulls Phobos apart, and so it'll get pulled apart like pulling apart a string basically on either end. And anyway, you can kind of see that if you squint. That's kind of a little bit what's going on. I see Phobos is kind of breaking apart up in the sky. So anyway, it's a little bit of a merging of science and art, but it looks awesome, right? I mean, I think it looks awesome. And,
Yeah,
and we're maybe seeing what Mars will look like 50 million years in the future. So
right. And he made me feel really smart when he said that. I was like, wow, okay, so we're not crazy.
You have predicted the future.
That's right.
So if Phobos is going to crash into Mars, why are we trying so hard to colonize that place? It seems like
it's 50 million years. I mean, that's a long time, right?
I don't know. I don't know. It seems a little short-sighted. Does Elon Musk know this?
I mean, Mars is just a bridge to, it's a bridge to getting elsewhere in the solar system where we're not having moons crash into our colonies.
Kind of like St. Louis.
I think it. Yeah, exactly.
It's the gate.
Like that.
It's the gateway to the rest of space. All right. So what else do we want to look at?
Taking it a little bit further, and Mark Goldsworthy did a great job putting all that together. And like I said, there really is a fictional reason that I can't elaborate too much on. Is the reason why Phobos is much closer to the surface. So as we walk forward, we want, like I said, we're touching on a lot of elements of Mars, and that is, the allure of the city. You want to go there; it immediately kind of draws you in. We wanted to really showcase that, there's these windswept dunes that are happening across the surface. Like, Mars is reclaiming itself in some way after the fall of humanity, and these dunes are moving, and they're coming into the city. And if you bring up, actually, I want to show a few things that we looked at, a few locations that we looked at for Mars in general, just to kind of place the whole destination. If you could bring up Candor Chasm.
Candor Chasm on main viewer.
Okay. So that is, this is Candor Chasm. This is one of the areas that we're looking at. We just like to have the cliffs in the background. We're looking at putting some dunes down below. And a lot of this is for player orientation. And now if you could switch to, I don't want to say this so wrong, Phoenicis Lacus. I think that's the way you say it.
Good job, yeah. That's right, yeah.
All right, good. So this is like a canyon region where there was a point where, like, do we put it down the canyon? Do we put the city on the edge of the canyon? There's all these different really cool features on Mars' surface that we really wanted to kind of to bring in to the skybox.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final one is Olympus Mons Flank, if you could put that one up. And so this is another location that, Olympus Mons is our galaxy's, our solar system's largest volcano.
Oh God!
And it's massive. It's this huge mountain on our volcano on Mars. And so we wanted to be able to use some of that in the background. So you still see some of that, and you can go ahead and bring that down now. You can still see some of that behind, to the right of the city, and it kind of just helps, give the player orientation in the environment. So we used all those elements and kind of scattered them around the perimeter of the destination itself to kind of help orient the player. And so that's like a grand scale thing that we did. And then there's stuff that we do within each bubble, which is what we call the zones that we're in right now, like planes, that we do to also help with local orientation. So let's move down. And oh yeah, I had one more image I wanted to show. Just the dunes. We did look at the Mars Mantera crater. And so those dunes are some of the imagery that we had looked at that helped kind of inform how we were going to build dunes on Mars and use that as kind of our spackle and our nature ascendant over man, our humanity over man.
So there's actually something really cool about those dunes, Jason. If you guys would follow me,
sure,
I can show you something.
Who
run past these battling guys. So the dunes in that crater are actually, they're called star dunes. And so you can see the dune crests in this area are all sort of oriented differently, and they sort of move around sinuously. But that's really what the dunes are like in that crater that you guys sort of modeled this after. But if you look at these features right in here, what's super cool about those dunes, oh man, we're getting attacked.
Yeah, not during the tour. No respect. Yeah,
there's geology going on here. So those dunes actually have gullies that are coming out of their slip faces. So we'll maybe talk about dunes a little bit later, but see these features here that you actually saw in your photo reference. This is where water basically we think is coming out of the dune. So it's warmer at the base of the dune or somewhere in the middle of the dune than it is at the top, right? Mars is super cold.
Yeah.
And so it heats up. And so the water actually at certain times of the year shoots out a little bit in little gullies and streams. So that's what you see in these dunes. It's pretty cool. So there's actually real water features on Mars all over the place. Certain times of year, it gets warm enough that we can see liquid water running out on the surface. So these dunes are one of the special places where we see that. So anyway, just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, it's one of the things that, you know, I was telling Craig earlier that when we start to build a destination, we kind of give it a silhouette or a basic composition. I'm going to run down towards downtown.
Cool.
And so we give it like a basic composition, and then we come back over and kind of start layering in, you know, the reality of the space and how things would erode, or you know, how the rocks would be laid out in a certain way based on, you know, wind, water, erosion, whatever that is. And so that kind of gets just slathered on top of the initial composition. All right, so I'm gonna get my
Yeah, Jason, the one thing I was going to point out, what Mars is really great for, is teaching the principles of geology, because you have those rocks, like the base rocks, which you see everywhere, the brown layered rocks, and then on top of those, you have the dunes that seem like they've come in and overlain all the rocks. And so that's one of the basic principles of geology, how we use to figure out how old things are, right? What's sitting on top of something else is younger. So you can actually reconstruct the history of what happens in this fictional version of Mars by looking at the relationships between the dunes and the rocks, right?
Yep.
And so it's pretty cool. It's a cool place to do that in Destiny, where you can really demonstrate a principle that we use all the time in geology, not just on Earth geology, but in Mars. We're using this right now to figure out what happened billions of years ago on the surface of Mars. So.
Well, and it's something that environment artists do, and it's the thing that, you know, brought me into environment art to begin with, is being able to tell a story with the environment itself, like, you know, the way something erodes or the way something falls apart, or, you know, you go into a room and something's been disheveled in a certain way, and it's like little micro stories that we try to place within our environments to build the history into it, and that goes, you know, all the way into, you know, everything from the, you know, you kind of have to be a little bit of a landscaper. You need to be a little bit of an architect. You need, you know, all these kind of traits come into play as an environment artist, and so you build these elements into the environment to make it that much more believable. And it's, you know, it's awesome when to hear guys like you say, like, hey, this is what it would do, and we see stuff like this on Mars. And, you know, some of that stuff was happy accidents, some of it was on purpose, but all of it was the intent to build a bit of history into the space. And so,
every single one of these ride-alongs that we've done so far, the theme of nature ascendant over humanity has come up. So when you look around, you know, even when you come into the Clovis Beret facility here, you can see that this staircase, you know, is already being reclaimed by the dunes. You know,
yeah, and that's one of the things that we wanted to do. You know, that was kind of the mandate, you know, for the whole project was, you know, nature ascendant over humanity, and how, you know, this golden age has been lost. And you know, with Mars, because we didn't have foliage and we didn't have trees and vines and things to kind of eat up the city itself, we used a lot of the sand. And you can see these sand dunes that do slowly move through time. They're kind of, like I said, reclaiming this area, and they're pushing in on these buildings, and these, you know, these ancient buildings are just husks of what they once were. Yeah. And you know, a great job to the palette team that did this. You know, this is like Daniel Tiger and Andrew Kreutzer and Sid Moyer, like all these guys, like, you know, worked on this palette. Even more than that, I mean, a lot of artists' hands have kind of gone through everything that you see here, kind of building it up to what it is, and kind of reining in that fiction.
Tell us a little bit more about that. When you say that you have a palette, you know, I mean, obviously that harkens back to, you know, the painter that would have, you know, the wood platform in their hands, and they're dabbing their brush and putting color on the screen. But when you go into your palette, what might you find? Is it like these steel textures or these sand textures?
Well, what it is, so like when I say palette, it's kind of a term that we use internally, and the palette is all the pieces, all the building pieces are actually made up of segments that are being snapped together to be able to build these different configurations. And so we have, like, this is the human colony palette, and so this is a whole set of pieces that we can use on various planets. It's also used on Venus. And each one of these pieces have a variant that we can change based on, you know, what planet that it's on. Yeah. Same thing with, you know, Vex has that as well. You know, they have variants, and so we have a Vex palette, and we have a Cabal palette. And so when I say palette, I'm just referring specifically just to the actual patterns themselves. So let's look at real quick. Let's look at human colony thumbs. And so this is kind of some early work done by Dorje Bellbrook, and this shows off. Make sure I'm looking at the right thing here. This is showing off kind of the early versions that we were thinking about doing for the human colony. Originally, we were thinking about, you can go ahead and bring it down. Originally, we were talking about having an outpost, not even having a city. But over time, we just realized that the juxtaposition of having this city, and not to mention with, the whole fact that, this great event happened that allowed humanity to reach out into space. It was much more compelling than having the typical outpost, on all these destinations. So we started going through a bunch of iterations on what that palette would look like. Mm-hmm. So if you go to buriedcity.jpg, that's the other one that that Dorje Belbrook did, and this is kind of starting to refine a certain look. And Mars is going to be kind of much more industrial, where Venus was going to be much more like living quarters, and you would have the hospitals and whatnot, like medical research labs.
So Jason, this is a scientific research lab over here, Clovis Bray.
Yeah, so Clovis Bray, there's actually a bit of fiction about that as well, and we can bring down. I don't know if you still have the image up or not, but Clovis Bray, there's a lot of fiction with Clovis Bray. I'm going to go inside the building real quick. Mm-hmm. There's kind of a little bit of Bungie history with that name that came from Rob McLeese back in the day, and I remember when we were first talking about how we're gonna name it and what it meant, which I still don't think we've touched on too much, but there is a lot of kind of back lore to this building, and this is actually their entire complex, the whole downtown area, which I forgot what it's called now. I think it's just called Buried City, maybe. Mm-hmm. I still remember old names for all of our areas, but this area is all the Clovis Bray campus, and the other area adjacent to it is transit, and that's kind of like their transportation area that they're bringing supplies in and out, or their goods that they are creating.
So are these guys geologists or chemists, or what are they doing? What are they researching?
They're scientists. I'm just gonna. I'll leave it at that.
All kinds of science. Applied
scientists. I mean,
there was
there's a bit of Rasputin in there that you get. The Cabal are, they're trying to push in and they're trying to take over that area. So you can start, kind of formulating some of your own ideas on that. And then I just want to show one more image before we kind of cruise out of here, and that is the human colony Thumbs B. And so this is another one where it really started kind of bringing in that the look of the buried city that we wanted, and how the buildings themselves were being kind of just toppled over. So you can imagine all the buildings that you see right here, it's not really the surface. I mean, these things go subsurface beneath the sand, and that sand is crushing them and offsetting them from each other and just kind of taking over this area. All right, so let's cruise to transit.
Copy transit.
They'd be in trouble if there was a Mars quake.
Yeah, no doubt.
Now, is that a risk?
I mean, we've never really detected one, but there's a lot of volcanoes, and if they ever decided to, be active again, that'd be a problem.
Yeah, I'm not interested in being one of the first people to die on Mars. Volcanoes, earthquakes, moons that are going to crash in like, what'd you say, 50 days?
50 days.
50 million years, I think.
Now, are those Earth years or are those Mars years? Because, time is relative, right?
It's Earth years, but it's really 50, 100 million years, whatever, it's fine.
Does Mars orbit around the sun at the same speed? I don't feel safe. I don't even feel safe right now.
Not.
I got Vex trying to kill me. I got Cabal trying to kill me.
I want to do this public event so bad.
Should we? I guess we shouldn't do that.
No public event for you. We have our own public event right now.
I'll throw some rounds down range for this guy.
Oh, Jesus. This guy's going to be mad at us.
I'm going to help him. Just give him a little help. All right, so I just want to talk a little bit about, because I have some reference that I want to show you guys, or some actual work in progress of this area specifically, and just kind of talk about the process at Bungie. And one of the things that we do when we're building our environments is we kind of go through a process of incubation, where we take notes, we talk about what a space is gonna be. It's all top down, kind of like 2D napkin sketch. We write down some fictional elements that we know we're going to build into the space. We talk about the types of enemies that are going to be in the space, and it's really, really crude. And then we go into a phase called mass out, where we start blocking in the space. And Matt Beignet had started working on a mass out for this space, and kind of what we wanted it to or how big or how small we want it to be, and where we wanted all the encounter pockets to be. Mm-hmm. And so if you bring up, let's see what the name of that is. If you bring up Transit Mass Out A, so this is that space an early phase where we're just trying to get a sense of scale and scope and where we want to, have some of our encounters. And then if you switch over to transit concept, and so this is Dorje Bellbrook's concept that he did based off that early layout. And like I said, it's a real crude layout, but it just kind of gives us an idea of how that space is gonna look. And so Dorje does this concept, and then we come back and we start kind of basically refining the look based on that concept. So now if you go to transit architecting, so then we go to an architecting phase, and like I said, in the architecting phase, we're refining it, and we've kind of started seeing some of the issues with the space. We'll start saying like, oh, there's not enough, there's not going to be enough potential for cover here. There's not you can't get a sparrow through here, or there's not enough encounter pockets, and so then we kind of refine and dig down to that. And so then now, if you just come back to the game, you see we go into the finishing and polish phase, and it ends up looking like this. But you can kind of see that. That process, I think of it as like clay. You just have a ball of clay, and you're slowly, sculpting and molding and getting your base forms and starting to add that detail to the very end. So that's kind of how our system works. I
think we talked about this on Guardian Radio some, but what points in that process is it most useful to have feedback, like from somebody who might know something about rocks? Or landscapes or something like that.
Honestly, like in architecting, like mass out's kind of like the ugliest phase, right? I mean, don't be wrong, it has its own beauty to it, but because you're getting some base level composition in there, but it's kind of a muddy phase. So in architecting is when we really start bringing in all the stuff that we had in incubation in that fiction. We start kind of reining that in so that we know. We now know kind of what we want there, and so having like a geologist or starting to really look at reference even harder than we had in the past. Really, architecting is that phase. That was a long answer for that, but it's like playing a game and talking.
Did you put curiosity in the game? What point did the rover make its way into the game? Is that?
Oh
that
man,
happened?
that happened. We kept talking about it, and. We honestly really wanted to do that, and we just never had the time. We never had a good location for it, and there was so much other stuff that we had on the plate at the time that never got around. Okay, sorry, I want to get you up here, Deej. So this area is kind of like a little transition space going up into Battleground. I kind of want to take a break here and like look at some other imagery. And this whole area is designed or created by a guy, Sam Rux, and he did an amazing job. Like all this stuff, he did it, and kind of in a pinch. We had a lot of issues with this space in general. Like there's just certain things, fundamental things that happen along development that you'll get into a tight space. In this area, just had there were some memory issues we were addressing, because always when you're mixing palettes, because we have Cabal, Human Colony, and the natural palette, and so it's one of those things that we definitely work towards.
So what are we looking at? What is this?
Yeah, so it's kind of a ruin space is what it's called, like BG. This is our nickname for it, is BG Ruin, because we knew we always wanted to have this collapsed city through here.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, Sam Rux came in and really banged it out and did an awesome job, and I think it just, I don't know, it's really pretty. I love coming through this area. So using this as kind of a jumping off point for what we wanted to look at here. If you look at planes closeup.jpg, so one of the things early on we were trying to figure out the Mars surface, like, how much foliage did we want to have, how far do we want to go with that, how green was it going to be, and how could we leverage any of that. So this is just an example of kind of one of our stepping off points as we're really getting detailed into each of the spaces. And then if you move to also talking about how the dunes are really important, if you move to the Mantera Dunes overview. So that is another concept done by Mark Goldsworthy. The previous one was done by Dorje Bellbrook. This one is Mark Goldsworthy's concept, and it's kind of just inspirational. It's not necessarily of any location on Mars, but it's kind of to show us like, hey, we want to be able to use this element as kind of a core for the whole space. And you see some of that right here in the stuff that Sam built, right? I mean, you have some of those things, some of those elements playing off each other.
Yeah, you've got the nice sinuous lines, you've got the wreckage poking through. It's a nice juxtaposition of textures.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then if you look at the MG Mantera Dune Bowl, This is another concept by Goldsworthy, and this is very early on actually. I mean, when these concepts were done as an inspirational image, they were done really early in our tools development, really early in the history of Mars. It was pretty gray modeled at that point, and these images were super iconic to the team, and they helped kind of inform us the rest of the way. All right, so let's go to Battleground.
Jason, check out the layering on these rocks.
Yep,
It's nice. Yeah, see, so there's this little channel in here, right?
Yep.
And then you've got, on the right side of the channel, you've got horizontal layering, and then on the left side of the channel, you've got horizontal layering. It's another principle in geology that you guys followed very nicely. It's called the principle of original horizontality. So those rocks were all horizontal, and then this some process, probably wind erosion or maybe some sort of river, flowed through and cut through them. And now you see that those rocks that were originally continuous now have this channel through them. So it's a very nice demonstration of that.
So this is, I'm actually going to be a little hacky and harken back to my grade school days. This would be sedentary rock? Is that why it looks streaked horizontally like that?
I think you're going with sedimentary.
Sedimentary. Sedentary is what we are, because we sit on our asses all day.
That's right.
It could be sedimentary rocks, and but for Mars, it could more likely be volcanic rocks, and those can be layered as well. So these look like they're pretty thick, maybe meter scale layers, which you can get with both sedimentary or volcanic rocks. You're not wrong. We just don't know without knowing the chemistry.
So Craig, what is your education?
I have a PhD in geology.
Okay.
And a bachelor's degree in physics, and I did some field work out in Death Valley for my PhD. I went and looked at deserts that are analogs to Mars.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of features that are in the skybox here in Destiny and relate to ways we might interpret water features on the surface of Mars. Cool. So there's things called alluvial fans that I think I might point out later in this ride along that are in the skybox, which are pretty cool.
I
studied.
It's a rare privilege to have an actual scientist on speed dial when you're talking about science fiction and when you're talking about planetary bodies. So those of you in chat who are feeling neglected because we're not taking your questions, it's not that we don't love you. It's just that Craig is uniquely and ideally suited to come along on this ride along and to spice the conversation with some of the facts that we can't extract from our own creative process. So with that, we will continue.
So yeah, this is...
Are people mad? No, people aren't mad.
No.
It's fine.
I love you. All right,
I don't want to make people mad.
No, that's my job. So where are we now?
So this is the front line of the Cabal. This is basically, the tip of the iceberg for everything to the north, which the Cabal occupy.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Cabal architecture, one of the things that we really want to do is to make sure that they're overpowering and kind of a oppressive and brooding force. They're very militaristic, and so you can kind of see all those elements, play into this palette, which is the Cabal palette.
Yeah.
And so we started gathering reference and creating a style guide to make sure that they also felt alien, yet a little bit familiar, so you can kind of pick up on some of the militaristic side of them. And if you want to bring up the Cabal architecture style sheet, this is something that Mike Zach put together. I'm not quite sure if it's up yet. It's up. Okay. So Mike Zach put this together early on, and it's just kind of like a style guide for the Cabal. Super early. This is during incubation phase, and it's basically just something for us to kind of use as a reference point as we continue to build. So then if you go to Cabal Sheet A, and so this guy is, kind of a small collection of things that we started looking at for inspiration for some of these elements for the Cabal. And then if you go to the Cabal Sheet B, this is another sheet. This is some of their tunnel networking systems, and just kind of just shows where we got some of the inspiration for some of the areas that we built. So now if you...
Did you say that Cabal Sheet A was from something in particular? I forget.
Some of it is it was some bunkers in Germany, or I'm not quite sure. There was a large collection of bunker reference that we looked at, and a lot of different military imagery that we pulled from to kind of bring that into this palette. And then if you jump to Cabal Battlegrounds JPEG, This is Jesse Van Dyke's. Man, it's like his postcard just for this area, and it won everyone over and dramatically built the space up and really gave it that oppressive look that it needed. So now if you just jump back to the game, you can see how we brought all those elements together to kind of form the palette that you see right now.
Cool.
All right, so if we go into the Cabal checkpoint, where I definitely want to bring up some of Craig's reference that we got after the fact that I wish so badly I had during this point.
So what we're going to show next.
Okay.
So what we're going to show next are not relic iron.
Yeah. Is there relic iron on Mars, Craig?
Well, that's why I was going to bring it up to see where you guys was it just iron, the iron reference? Is that what you're going for?
I think so.
Mart? Yeah.
I think a lot of that they were trying to find something that really closely matched the destination, and fictionally, and kind of tied into the geology of the destination. And iron deposits and all that kind of, I think that's where all that stuff stemmed from.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. It doesn't appear as it does in Destiny, just in these sort of glowy red outcrops there. But there is a mineral called hematite that we found with the Opportunity rover. It's an iron oxide, and it just forms these little spheres. You may remember from many years ago. They're called spherules, I believe, or. Anyway,
I call them
they're these little balls.
That's what.
Spheroids, sure.
Yeah,
you can call them whatever you want. But
I call them sedentary circles.
Sedentary circle.
They form out of the rocks when water seeps up underneath them. Basically, it percolates through them, and you wind up with these iron oxide concretions. And then you have them at the surface. And so the reason they landed the Opportunity rover where they did was because we saw from orbit this very high signature of this mineral called hematite, which is, in my mind, what relic iron is. So I think relic iron landed the Opportunity rover in Meridian Planum. So that's what I'm going with.
Okay.
That's the story.
Okay.
Little backstory.
Good job.
That's good.
Yeah.
The reference that you had sent us, it was the if you could bring up Curiosity Salisbury Peak Cave.
Right.
This is kind of what this is the way I imagine this place, and I wish I had this reference ahead of time. And again, we're trying to get as much reuse out of some of the palette that we have, just so that we can't make everything 100% as unique as we would have liked. But I think that this is something that I would have loved to use for this area, and I think we have a little bit of that feel when we came through BG Ruins. I think it has some of that kind of going on.
Yeah.
But I love it, and actually, if you go to Curiosity Salisbury Peak Cave Zoom, this is the coolest thing that I liked about this reference, is that there's actually already a loot cave.
Already a loot cave
right there.
Yep.
And we could have totally leveraged that and use it on Mars.
Get it while it's good, because it won't be there long.
So you notice in that image, there's two different types of rocks. There's those light-colored rocks, sort of at the base of the hill, and then there's the darker rocks. And the lighter color rocks are mudstones, and we think that there's a lot of water that flowed over these rocks and into them. And you can see it in the zoom image. You can actually see these white features that are sort of lining the cave a little bit. Those are features called veins. And so as the water dried up, minerals precipitated out of the water and formed those features. And so the water as it was flowing through, it finds all the little nooks and crannies and fractures in the rocks, and then it precipitates out, minerals precipitate out of the water, and you're left with those sorts of features. And so it's cool because we find this little cave, thing that might be a cave there, right at the interface between the dark and the light rocks, and we see all these veins. So the cave is more likely to form there, right? The cave would form at this point of weakness in between the rocks where one rock type meets the other. So it's corroborated by these vein-like mineral precipitates there in this feature. But yeah, you're totally right. We found a loot cave on Mars.
Yeah, which is pretty
in
amazing.
Real life.
That's what the first thing Deej said when he saw it was like,
loot cave.
It's a loot cave.
Yeah, and that's what's really interesting, is the fact that we're able to not just put concept art up on the screen, but also actual photographs from the surface of Mars. I mean, that's
And that one's not too old. We just found that one maybe a few weeks ago. It's really not too old. This is pretty recent.
Are these never before seen photos from the Curiosity rover?
These have been seen.
You promised me a world exclusive.
Actually,
I'm just pointing you to them. That's all I'm doing. They're available for those who seek them, but some people don't go seek them.
So Craig, if the moon is going to crash into Mars in 50 weeks, how long have there been Vex on Mars?
Oh man, maybe a couple weeks. I don't know.
A couple weeks.
Well, no, I listened in the game, and it said billions and billions of years,
right?
right?
The whole time.
Wasn't that?
Yeah.
It said that, which I was confused by because Mars could only be 4.5 billion years old at best.
That you know of. I mean, this is with current science.
I
mean
yeah.
I'm just saying that the
who knows what we'll find out.
It's only that old.
It's just with current science. Yeah. Yeah.
The solar system is only 4.5 billion years old, so I was confused how they'd been around. I mean, Mars would have just been a molten ball of lava, 3 billion years ago. So how were they hanging out?
Yeah.
How did they make structures?
Yeah, that's hard to say.
It is space magic. That is absolutely what it was.
So Jason, we're not entering the gate right now.
We're not going to go in the gate right now. I just want to talk a little bit about Valley. This is actually an area that that almost didn't make it in the game. Not early on, actually, about midway through, there was potential risk for this area because it was as large as it was, and there was some, just tying the whole destination together. And so, being that Mars was the destination that we really wanted to make driving much more fun on, like you had much more real estate to be able to kind of cruise around. You had the dunes, and you could, kind of get around, really zing around your Sparrow. Mars was the location for that, and this bubble we wanted to kind of keep for that reason, so people can kind of cruise through here, have their own little races or whatever they wanted to do. And then also fictionally, there used to be before, because the gate used to not be here, and I'll get to that in a second. But fictionally, there used to be this giant Vex column in this area that you would traverse up and get an overview of the whole destination. And it was tied in fictionally to the Black Garden Gate. And what we ended up doing is removing that and bringing the gate here. And if we just let me jump to the marsvalley.jpg and just kind of show some of the concept by Isaac Hannaford of the valley itself and the style that we were going for. And eventually it kind of got won over. Yeah, right? they a lot of that stuff kind of stayed in the destination. Sorry, I'm just getting pummeled. I'm gonna.
You can come over here, Jason. There's a good view of some of those features I think you're talking about.
I'll cruise over there. And so, we retained a lot of that, and I think that, being able to kind of cruise to the destination, be able to have the Cabal tank over in this bubble, there was a lot of stuff that really worked. And then if you go to Mars Valley 1, this is an image that Isaac did as well of that Vex tower we're going to have in the center. And like I said, it was a really iconic item that was going to stand kind of in the middle, it's the central portion of this bubble. This is before the Cabal tank had actually come in here.
So are these things I'm looking at out here sort of remnants of that idea?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and those are actually showing that there was this array of these things, and this was kind of like the final node of that array, but that's kind of been converted into the Black Garden Gate itself. And so if you go to, and this is, I put this up there because I wanted Craig to look at this, and I knew he would respond the way he did earlier when we were talking about it. If you go to Mars Valley 2 JPEG, this is the base of that column, and that's showing, one of the things that we want to do here as well is we wanted to have bring in some of this blue hue to the sand. We just want to make it feel a little bit different. And it does have some elements. We have some of the lighter sand, and that you don't see in some of the other parts of the destination. We really wanted to set it apart. And Craig, you can talk about some of that, because like I said, we pulled from a lot of actual reference on Earth, but the catalyst for that was some of the stuff that we were seeing on Mars that had some of that blue hue and that contrast with the actual topology of that normal.
That Mars Valley 2 concept is really cool. Yeah, I really like the right side is really reminiscent of stuff you see in areas like Death Valley and other arid desert regions where you have this standing water that's coming in kind of from the back of that piece of art, and the water's flowing in, and then it just sits there. It's stagnant in the middle of a topographic low, and so it just winds up evaporating. And like I was talking about earlier, where you have minerals precipitating out of the water as the water evaporates, that's what's going on there. And what's cool about what happens in Death Valley, is that different minerals wind up precipitating at different times. And so at the very edge, you'll wind up with these white crystals, and then as you move sort of to the interior of the pond, as the water keeps evaporating, you wind up with very different crystals. And so that's what that crust around there is really cool. And I think I sent you an excited email about that. It'd be really cool to see something like that. I was also going to point out geologically, this area is pretty neat because. What's that?
Oh, I was just telling Scott he could come back to the game.
This area that we were looking at with the Vex towers.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that this was kind of inspired by an area, I think, east of Olympus Mons, near Valles Marineris, and sort of this big canyon system that's on Mars that's as big as the United States is long. And so
right.
this area in the middle of this valley here is sort of, you can see there's this fracturing going on, right? If you follow kind of you see these plateaus out here, and then the Vex towers, you can see that the crust of Mars is just kind of being ripped apart. It's like you're pulling it apart. And that's actually what's going on in this sort of Rift Valley system on Mars that's just to the east, basically Valles Marineris, and the other area that you guys use for inspiration, Candor Chasm, which is a very large part of Valles Marineris. And so these fractures are how the Mars's crust responded to the enormous weight of Olympus Mons and the surrounding volcanoes. So it's a volcano the size of the state of Arizona, and it's just sitting there on the Mars crust, and the crust eventually gives way. It's like when you blow up a balloon, and then you see the balloon actually splits in 90-degree angles to the way the balloon is expanding, right? So it pops down. So that's what's going on. The crust is effectively just being ripped apart, and so this valley really demonstrates that. And I was going to ask you, but you already mentioned it, what these Vex towers were, so I would have been interested in those. So anyway, that's all I got. I like this area a lot.
Yeah, but you're not selling it to me. It still does not sound like a nice place to colonize at all. I mean, the ground is being ripped apart. It's just...
Look, Deej, remember I mentioned alluvial fans? Those are formed from water, and so it probably rained up in these mountains over here, and you can actually see alluvial fans. I don't need weapon ammo in my secondary, but I'll shoot over at them. You can see the little river streams and braided stream channels over there on the other side of the valley. It would probably be nice over there. So there's the little streams.
Yeah,
you could go
I
hang
guess.
out in.
If we could make sand skis, I can imagine like a nice resort here, maybe a chairlift. Sand skis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be done.
Yeah. Maybe Clovis Bray could make those for us with their research and development department. All right, where are we going next?
So, and I just want to show this. This is some of that, the blue sand that we were trying to kind of get into here, into this space.
Oh yeah, I had an image of that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Did you want to pull that one up? Curiosity, Dark Dunes?
Yep, there it is. If we go to Curiosity, Dark Dunes, again, we're just trying to bring some of the real world reality.
Real world reality is real.
Yeah, it's real.
The reality of real world reality from the real world.
A video game.
This is the story. True story.
Exactly. It's real. But yeah, so we're just trying to bring those fictional or those actual elements into a fictional space.
Yeah.
And
you're losing
wherever we can.
Where are you going now?
So now if we go ahead and jump back.
The dunes.
Jump back to the game.
I don't need. I can talk about the dunes. I don't have to. It's fine.
Oh no, we're going to talk about dunes.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Okay. Oh yeah.
So I was talking earlier about how the Black Garden Gate originally wasn't in Valley, and we had it somewhere else. So if you go to Mars Transit Black Garden Entrance A, originally the Black Garden Gate was going to be underground in the subway system, and that's where we're going to put it. And it wasn't quite as epic, and it just didn't kind of jive. And if you go to Mars Transit Black Garden Entrance B, you can kind of see. I mean, while it's compelling and it's really cool and it's mysterious, like there's some really really neat elements to it, but it just wasn't as cool of a feature as it could have been. So we started looking across Mars, like where are we going to put the Black Garden Gate? Should we put it back in the very beginning in planes? So as soon as you land, you see this thing, and you're always kind of going around it, but you don't know what it does, and eventually you're like, oh wow, it opens up and I can go through it. But we ended up putting it in Valley because it was just the real estate was right there for it, and it was a good spot to be able to showcase all the cool stuff that it does. So just a little bit of history of how things get moved around a bit as you're building. So if you just want to go back to the game, we'll actually go through the Black Garden Gate.
Oh God, seriously?
we'll do it. We're gonna do it. Because I really wanted to kind of show the contrast that the Black Garden has.
All right, you first.
To Mars.
So, are we on Mars, Jason?
So, there's been a well.
Careful.
Can I know. I'm like, I want to say so many things. Well, we'll just leave that a mystery for now.
I don't know what you're going to say.
That's true.
I'm going to have to answer for it.
I have to look at him to make sure I don't
I'm just
get anything
asking the
wrong.
questions.
I don't. Yeah, I'm just asking
So
questions here.
We've been ported into this, into the Black Garden, and one of the things that was always so cool about the Black Garden is kind of giving you just a completely different feel immediately as soon as you left the surface of Mars. And then coming through here, we wanted to kind of have that moment where you experience effects in a different way, like this catatonic state, and a lot of that came from like the Terracotta Army and looking at I can never remember. It's in Cancun. There's an art project in Cancun where they buried these statues underwater. It's creating a coral reef. Anyway, so both of those things kind of help drive, kind of walking through these Vex covered in moss.
Jason.
Yes.
Jason, gotta come back.
I'm coming back.
Coming
I
back.
gotta show you something. So since I pointed out the layered rocks on Mars, as a geologist, I would look back here at these rocks and be like, those look like the same rocks. So we're still on Mars. That's what I'm going with.
That's what you're going with. Okay.
Just geologically speaking, these are Mars rocks. So that's all. I'm just putting that out there.
Maybe they got ported with.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you never know. I mean, like, everything around. Like, think of the Terminator, right? When he goes through. Like, that sphere takes it all with him.
Now,
So,
are those still sedimentarian rocks?
Yeah, they're sedimentarian rocks. They've been sitting there.
Sedimentarian.
So, coming around this corner.
Never mind. Sorry.
No, it's good. What are you going to say, Craig?
He was talking about sedimentary rocks, and then I remembered that the Vex dropped these things called radiolaria, which are little critter skeletons that are billions of years old. So
yep.
Yeah. Actually, hundreds of millions of years old, but whatever. Anyway, carry on.
All right. So coming through here, this was kind of like that moment, just kind of give you that shock. Some of these guys are waking up, and it's just a slow introduction to the Black Garden. We wanted to, give you a tight space that ended up opening up and having a really good reveal to the Black Garden itself. And so all of this is just kind of a prep, making that transition from the surface of Mars and into the Black Garden itself.
So even the dimensions of a space can be a storytelling tactic?
Absolutely. I mean, you'll contract and you'll expand, based on the kind of mood or atmosphere that you're trying to create.
I can contract or expand based on my mood.
Don't we all? Yes.
Yeah. Also, donuts affect that.
Donuts will affect that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So as we kind of cut through here and chew these guys up,
clear the area.
Wanted to show a little bit of
so
our
these
early
rocks
concepts.
This is like concrete, and then it's just been plastered on this Vex stuff, right? I mean, it's a thin layer of concrete on some Vex craziness.
I think it has that look, but the actual way they're building their blocks is kind of built from the inside out, and so you'll see some of the stuff on the inside, the metal filling that is actually all these data points, and all the Vex columns are their architecture is, I mean, think of it as almost like it's like a functioning computer. There's data going through it, even though it just looks like stone. They're very much alive in some way.
The machine world. Who'd we lose? What'd you do? You left.
Oops.
Our tour guide left the game. I don't know how to get back to the surface.
What do I do?
Here, allow me to, let's see. Are you still online?
No, it's been signed into another.
Okay, he was just getting the good part.
I'll walk. Since Dee's showing it, I can actually.
I don't know if they can hear you, but
they can hear me.
yeah, yeah, they can hear you. But go ahead and sign
Data
in.
flowing through rocks.
Data flowing through rocks.
All right,
There's data flowing through rocks.
So,
it's amazing.
If you're coming through this space,
go ahead and sign back in.
It's gonna.
I can't hear Jason.
All right, so as you're walking through the space, if you want to look at the early garden thumb.jpg, And so this is like the early Black Garden, kind of the very, very first image that inspired the Black Garden to feel like it's underwater or it's ethereal. This is very different and mystical place. You can go ahead and come back to the game.
We'll clear the area while you adjust your settings.
All right.
Okay. Is it? I can't hear Jason. Is that?
Yeah, we're working on
okay?
getting him back into the game.
Okay. I'll shoot stuff. I think we should use rocks as hard drives. That's really, I think that's the new thing.
Well,
Rocks
it would
should
put a
be
lot of people
the
out of
new-
business. I mean, you know, you can just go out and pick up
There's a lot of
rocks
rocks.
off the ground.
Yeah. I like this idea. I mean, there's already a lot of silicon in them,
Mhm.
so that's, you know, important for computers. Why are we not just...
So as somebody who studies this stuff all the time, I mean, obviously you're a lover of games, you enjoy entertainment, so you play these things, you have to suspend a certain amount of your disbelief, right? You have to
Absolutely.
sort of, you know, it's a partnership, right?
That's the fun.
You kind of have to meet us halfway, right? It's escapist, but at the same time it does seduce the imagination from the standpoint of your education and all that stuff. So
Yeah, but that's anybody who, you know, watches a science fiction film and does the same thing, right? There's a little bit of a suspension of disbelief, but you want to believe that these things might be possible in some way, and scientists are the same as everybody else. We want to believe that
Almost there.
super cool, awesome stuff is possible too. So we love imagining these things with you guys. So I think it's a lot of fun. And yeah, I like these hard drive rocks around here. They're fun.
There we go.
good. And I'm going to send you an actual game invite so you can join us back.
Okay.
Temporary setback, but you're back on the air. Just like that. Thank God for joining progress, eh?
That's right. That's right. So, now that that's out of the way,
Good. I was just about to talk about radial area again.
Oh
Jeez.
God, oh God. So we
we're
actually
giving
had
everyone a really good education on Mars. I mean, much more than I could ever do, because I'm just going to tell you how to try to make it look funkier, more alien.
So when we did the same ride along on Venus, we had Blake Lowe, and he was talking to us about his palette and the fact that he had a lot of different plants that he could use to decorate the environment. You know, he could go through and he could add foliage.
Mhm.
So since we're dealing with these Vex-themed environments here, are these different plants? Are these the same plants that we saw on Venus?
No, they're totally different. So
Okay.
they're all Black Garden specific. Because everything that grows in the Black Garden is being kind of created by the garden itself, or it's
Okay.
or it's living off the garden itself. And you can even see this is right here. If you look down at the ground,
Yeah.
that's actually the Vex inside them have this data milk.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they communicate. And what you're looking at is like a dried bit of that stuff that's been coagulated on the ground that Eric Castle's
gross.
Is
made.
that what you guys? Do you guys really call it Vex milk? Is that really?
Data milk.
Well, we have a lot of funny terms for it.
No,
and
no, no,
Vex
no, you
data milk
don't.
is one of them.
Oh, no, you don't. I almost got kicked out of a bar telling that story.
All right.
You know what's in that stuff? Radial area.
Radiolaria.
That's
Radiolaria.
So now if we look at, before we walk out here, if you want to bring up the Black Garden postcard.
Mhm.
And so this was created by Dorje Belbrook, as was the previous image. And those were, again, inspirational images that we built off of. And I would say that, the battlegrounds and this guy are the ones that we stayed very, very true to. The Black Garden, this concept was actually done long before, the early days of the Black Garden, and we stuck to it as much as we possibly could because it was it evoked so many questions, basically.
Mhm.
If we go up there, if we walk up there, very bad at playing games and talking.
Dude, it's try going into the Crucible with Invigorate. It's the most exhausting and demoralizing 2 hours of my life.
So if you look out, this is that vista. This is looking at the mass in the center of the garden.
Mhm.
You get a little bit of the the actual shard that's down below in the lower garden. You kind of see little bits of that. And all that geometry, we cloned off to make sure that it was like one-to-one exactly where it would be when you actually make that transition and walk down into that space.
Yeah.
So now if we move over here...
So anyway, can I...
Yeah, please.
Can I say something about this?
Do it.
So this, I think I sent you an image one time, Jason, because this feature out in the distance, this rock, to me looks a lot like a feature called Devil's Post Pile, which is it's made of columnar basalt, which is actually the interior of it's like basically the cooled magma chamber of a volcano. So anyway, people should look up a picture of it. I wish I'd put it in our little ride along, but
I think
it's super cool. And
I think he used that as some of the inspiration when he was creating that. Mark Goldsworthy's skybox artist and one of our skybox artists.
Yeah.
And a lot of the really cool stuff you see in the distance, he's created that stuff.
It's really
and
cool.
I'm pretty sure that's one of the references that he used.
So, Craig, what you're saying is that's the inside of a former volcano that survived erosion, or is it like the bluffs and the buttes in Australia?
I'm not familiar with the Australian geology as much, but yeah, it's basically the core of the volcano that's been preserved. But it doesn't help us figure out if we're on Mars or Venus because both planets have volcanoes. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, just wanted to point that out that's really cool looking and.
So if we go,
rocks.
Let's nuke this dude, and then I'm gonna go to another spot. Sorry, I didn't know. Just want to make sure the concept's back down. And then we're gonna go to another area, and I want to show you some stuff that Jesse Van Dyke did to kind of showcase a spot in Upper Garden. Because originally we wanted to have some of the Upper Garden opened up to the sky, so you can actually look out and see light being cast in, just to break it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And this space up here, right in the central area before you descend into the lower garden, is one of those spaces. And as soon as we get in there, so we can kind of compare. Like I said, there's a lot of iteration that happens, when you're building these spaces. But there's a lot that a lot still comes through when you're finished. The backbone and a lot of these concepts and reference still kind of shine through and stay there.
Yeah.
So this space with this central area originally was going to look like if you look at bring up Upper Black Garden JPEG. This is another Jesse Van Dyke concept, and the area above us would have been opened up to the sky, and it would have allowed some light to come in and just kind of break up the space. And a lot of the reasons, there was some fictional reasons why we didn't do that. There's a lot of things got altered and changed where we placed some of the combatants, and so some of that went away, but the actual space itself and the the kind of size of the space, kind of feel of the space stayed there. So we can go ahead and come back to the actual game now. Then we started incorporating some other elements.
Is this like a particle accelerator right here or something, Jason?
So,
like a big tunnel?
What we always thought of it as is like an actual, like a data point, and like basically there's like data that would stream through here to the center of the garden, and this is only one of many. They're radial. They go around the entirety of the garden, and so
this is a transmitter
the
here.
loose fiction that we were working with.
We got like a transmitter array here, and then it would shoot.
Right, or catch data. From the
Send and
central
receive.
portion of the garden.
Now, I've been in this space several times, but I've always been fighting. I never realized that it's raining in reverse, and that this water
the drops are coming up.
is actually pooling and rising.
And some of that is,
like I said,
either. It's bringing the it's really subtle, and a lot of stuff that we did in here is subtle for that reason, just to kind of give you that. We don't want to beat you over the head with the ethereal, the etherealness of the space, but we want it to be this real subtle kind of something's off, something's quite off.
Yeah.
We wanted to make it feel almost like you're underwater, and that's why you have these really long sprigs of plant life. It kind of gives you that, like kelp or something.
Yeah, it does look like seaweed, and it moves gently, moves slowly, as if
And again, it's it's a stark contrast to the surface of Mars. It just feels very different. And then when you come out here and you're going down to the lower garden, you start getting the petals from the flowers rising up from the winds. And they're kind of, floating up in a way that's not quite natural. Like everything's just kind of off.
But pretty.
But pretty.
Cool. But very pretty. Yeah, that's cool.
this is a lot of guys worked in this. Matt Beignet, Eric Castles, and they built this amazing space. I'm gonna go down this direction, and then if you want to bring up, I'll just show some of the early stuff that we talked about. Because we're talking about how it was ethereal, and we wanted to make it seem strange and different than the surface. If you bring up the Black Garden Thumbs B, and so that guy kind of shows you some of the different variations that we had and what we were thinking about when we were building it. But we wanted to make it very Vex centric, so we kind of pulled away from some of the themes that you see in that. Kind of went more towards the Vex that you know now. So that's pretty much it. Except
I'm still blown away by the reverse rain. It's really cool.
Yeah, you think you know a place.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, if we just go down here, I did want to show one video of something that Jesse Van Dyke, but we can't. It's not going to run. Oh, so sad. So Jesse Van Dyke did this amazing concept because not only can he paint and do some beautiful renderings, but he can also model in 3D very, very efficiently. Mm-hmm. And he built the core, the mass that you see at the very end of the game. He built that and did a real quick iteration that ended up basically staying the same. Like, I mean, it was so cool that we were like, we have to keep that. That's
we
so
could just
awesome.
go in and watch the cutscene in that case,
let's
right?
Go down and check it out. And it's running. Okay. So this is the video that Jesse did as an example of what it could be, and it kind of won everyone over. Everyone's like, yeah, that's awesome. We should try to figure out a way to put that in game, because he's rendering that all within Max. And so we were like, how do we reverse engineer this and get it actually running in real time in the game? And the Spec Ops team, led by Dave Matthews and Justin Hayward and those guys, they did an amazing job pulling that off and making it look as cool as it does. So we'll finish out this encounter, and then we'll go in and we'll actually get a chance to see that in real time.
But it's a dead end.
I know.
The heart is just beyond here. This place is just one big machine.
Just one big machine.
So it's one big machine. So they're trying to turn whatever this is into the rocks into hard drives, Jason, and acquire a bunch of data. Is that what's going on?
No, I can't really talk about.
All right.
No, I mean what it is. It is, it's definitely one of their core data points, and they're holding the heart of the Black Garden at the center of it. They're defending it, and pretty much all I can say.
If you look at Mercury, I mean, that's what everywhere the Vex go, that's what they do. That's their version of terraform.
Yeah.
It's they're coring through Venus. If you're on the multiplayer map that takes place on Mercury, you can see that they've turned. I mean, the establishing shot of Mercury, all of Mercury, is been turned into a machine world.
Yep.
And the Black Garden is no different.
It's almost like their version of terraforming, right? And they all communicate with each other in that way.
And if you guys are familiar with some of the Grimoire, the Vex have a lot of computational power, apparently. There's some cards about them simulating other universes and parallel universes and things, so it's pretty interesting.
Absolutely.
I always love this sequence.
Yeah, this sequence is really cool.
The way
this is another Spec Ops sequence.
So when we say Spec Ops, we mean the special team that we take this team and we give them some of the larger moments in the game. So this is we're about to reveal the Black Garden. We're about to unveil the setting where the game will end, and we need something totally awesome.
Yep.
So we want them to create awesome animations and take some of the bigger moments in Destiny and just have them be a little bit more amazing. And when we say Dave Matthews, we mean our Dave Matthews. We don't mean we don't mean that other Dave Matthews.
Yeah, so these
Focusing
guys,
that laser took a lot of calculations of the right refractive indices for the crystals, right?
That's right.
I mean, that's, yeah.
Those guys, no, that's right. Those guys, I mean, it's a dedicated team that, they do all of our spectacle things within the game. And it's actually a new team. It's a team that, started with effects, and it's kind of grown with this title, that we actually have a core team that does all of those kind of events. Everything from, moments to a door opening to a boss awakening.
Mm-hmm.
So these Vex have like moss growing on them and stuff.
Right.
Seems like they've been there for a while.
Yeah,
It's
the
because
same
they're
dormitory
sedentary.
state. Yeah, they're exactly.
Sedentary Vex.
Sedentary Vex.
That's right.
You know what they say, a rolling Vex gathers no moss.
So this is that mass I was talking about and how it came through. And you can see a lot of those elements being rendered in real time.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much all I had.
Yeah, and that brings us to the end of your tour and your concept art. So
Jason, we didn't talk about angles of repose.
I know. So I do have that image in there. We could go to orbit, and I could finally put it to bed. that I even had some reference about angles of repose.
Yeah, should I take us? I can take us to orbit.
I assumed it was coming up. But
we've gone.
Let's go to orbit.
We've gone long.
Let's go to orbit. I'll bring it up.
Copy. Going to orbit. Coming to orbit. Yes. Confirm. Cover me. Cover me. There we go. We're clear.
Should be in there. What's the name?
Whew, that was close.
There should be a JPEG in there. It's angle of repose. Oh no. No, that's probably my fault.
Try repose. I remember there was an image called repose.
Okay, there we go.
Oh,
so Craig, I'll let you explain. But this goes, Craig asked me the question a while back, and I knew what it was, and I could not answer him on a podcast.
So it's on screen now.
And so and so this is what Craig's talking about. He's talking about how dunes are formed and how they fall away. And so, but Craig's the expert, so I'll let him talk about it. But I just want to put it out there. We did have this on hand. So yeah.
Right, yeah. Just depending on the gravity and the size of the sand grains and the porosity of the material and how dense it is, and a bunch of things go into figuring out what the angles are of a sand dune. So I guess we're not in the game anymore, but I was just pointing out that there's usually an angle. It's typically between 35 to 50 degrees or so that the slip face of a dune will form. Where the sand falls down, and so anything steeper than that, the sand will just sort of collapse in a little pile. And so I tease you about that every once in a while.
Well, and we flubbed the rules a little bit too. I mean, we for reasons like containment and other reasons, just to be able to get some of the composition that we wanted. But I think we got most of it right. Pretty good job.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I hope that the world is now more educated on rock formations.
Yes.
And sands. Yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into making environments, and like I said, it starts with the core idea and then works its way into kind of reality and trying to bring elements of that into the game, and having guys like Craig on hand, now that we didn't have him for a while, and towards the end, it's actually been really exciting to be able to get images from him and try to retrofit that into destinations.
Cool. Well, and it's great to be able to walk around the actual destination for you and hear what you have to say about it.
It's absolutely fun to tie in some science when I can and add a little bit of depth to the world. I think it really, like you were saying, it helps sort of in the level of detail when you want the environment and the landscapes to tell a story. It helps to have some idea of how things should relate to each other, and to convey that to the player through the world itself and the landscapes is really cool and important, I think, for games. So I think Destiny does that really well, and I'm happy to be friends with you guys and chat about this stuff.
Cool.
It's great.
Pleasure's all ours.
Thanks,
thanks to Jason Sussman, Bungie World Artist. Thanks to Garrett White, a.k.a. Dr. Craig Hardgrove from Guardian Radio. You can find more of Craig's insights on Guardian Radio, as well as his audio Grimoire cards. As he mentioned before, he's a real big fan of the Grimoire and has been bringing those things to life with his own audio stylings. I'm Deej from Bungie. This has been a ride-along. Should we post who's the leading Destiny streamer right now? And we can post a link to their stream in our chat and share our audience with them, because we're about to go offline. You're welcome to join us here. Is it Professor Broman? All right. So Your orders are all to report to Professor Broman from one professor to the next. We're going to be back here next week. We'll be on the surface of the moon with lead world artist Sam Jones and special guest to be announced very soon. So thanks so much for joining us today. Sorry we were not engaging with the chat, but this has been all about talking to Dr. Hardgrove about something he knows better than most people on this planet. So thanks for tuning in, and we're out.